Hey guys, again, Daniel Spatz. Daniel Spatz interviews from California. Noon, now good afternoon, 3 minutes after 12. So I'm ready to give a wonderful welcome to Nick Saviano, great American tennis coach, legend of coaching. Nick was a professional player and a great coach for, many years, coached some of the best players in the USA. So I'm waiting for Nick to connect. Hola, hi, how are you doing? English interview today. Hey, hi, hola, how everybody? I'm waiting for Nick, Saviano Tennis. Saviano Tennis. It's not yet. Nick Saviano again? Nick? Is you Nick? Nick Saviano? So I thought that was going to be Saviano Tennis, your profile. So there you go. I don't know what doesn't allow me to accept. Oh, there you go, Nick.
Oh my goodness.
We did it.
That's more stress than the 5-set match at Wimbledon.
Look, I have the match point ball.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I'm not very good at this.
No, we as tennis players, we did it.
All right, thank you.
No,
How
thank
are
you
you?
for joining. You don't need reading glasses? Oh, man.
No, I'm okay. At this point, I'm pretty good. I use reading glasses when I'm reading, but I'm not reading right now.
So. No, I have to read. So, Nick, thank you so much for accepting.
It's my pleasure, and thanks. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Nick, after so many years. So how are you, Nick? How are you doing? What are you doing now?
Well, first of all, life is great, and I'm doing extraordinarily well. I'm healthy. I'm married 40 years. I've got 3 beautiful daughters, one that helped me get on here. And, they're 39, 35, 33. I got 7 grandchildren. Tennis is going great. The academy is going great. I'm excited about my new online streaming business. And I have more enthusiasm to work with young people than I ever have. So I can't complain.
Wonderful, Nick. So how many hours on the court every day?
Why are you asking that? I get embarrassed. I get pretty excited. I start at 7 a.m. and I often don't get off till about 6:30. So I'll take an hour off, but between the clinics and the private lessons, and I love working with young people with dreams. As most people who know me know, I really don't like to travel. And so I traveled reluctantly out on the tour, with the USTA. I traveled quite a bit, but I worked with a lot of wonderful players, which was really exciting. But in general, I choose not to travel very much. So I love working at home at the academy, and I have various players will come in and work with me, some elite juniors, the academy players, sometimes world-class professionals. So it keeps me busy.
Nick, I can see your book behind you, Maximum Tennis, which is with Andrew Agassi in the cover. How much that book means for you, Nick?
Well, whenever you write a book, there's a sense of accomplishment, of getting something done. Having to go through the process of getting it published and really working through and having to think out your thoughts and put it down on paper and really get it critiqued. So you think of things that you feel are pretty simple and straightforward, and then somebody tells you that you gotta reword it a little bit, make it a little more clear. So it's a great process intellectually to kind of qualify and quantify your information and then set it up in a really disciplined, organized way. And I had a brilliant guy that guided me through it. I wrote every word in the book, but there was a gentleman that had heads Human Kinetics. He's the founder. And they're the largest producer of athletic books. And his name was Dr. Reiner Martins. And brilliant guy, PhD. And, you know, I submitted an outline to him. And, you know, he came back, said, no, this, that. And we worked through it. And he really gave me some great thoughts and ideas for how the book is structured. And it was an arduous process, but what I'm very pleased with, and I'm proud of the book because a lot of the information is still relevant, which goes to a lot of my coaching philosophy. You know, Daniel, when I talk about fundamental principles are those which they were relevant when we were playing, before we were playing, they're relevant today, they'll be relevant in the future. And so understanding when you're in a coaching situation, understanding what the fundamental principles are. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, somebody's hitting ground strokes. You want them to get the ball, I call, in the optimum hitting zone or in your ideal position. Now, that is applied many years ago, and it applies today. You use your footwork to get the ball in position in your optimum hitting zone as consistently as possible so you can produce quality shots. The players today are super quick. They use their positioning great. Sure, they can hit balls that are not quite in their strike zone, and they hit it great. However, whenever they possibly can, they're going to work their butts off to get in great position, whether it's the females, the males, the best players, aspiring players. If you're working with a 10-year-old, if you're working with a 70-year-old, you want to get them in, get that ball in the ideal hitting position so that you can strike the ball, you know, the best that you can over and over. That's an example of a fundamental principle that you want to teach. And from my perspective, this is just my kind of philosophy. You want to understand what those principles are. Now, that's very different than, oh, I'm going to tilt the racket forward in the take back. That's more of a stylistic thing. Or you might be saying, well, I'm tilting it forward so that I get much more racketed speed. That's what I call a high performance principle. But things such as positioning, early preparation, ball watching, these skills, these are fundamental principles like ball watching. You go look at video of Ken Rosewall hitting a backhand and his head is as still as ever. You go watch the latest video of Alcaraz ripping, I mean, exploding on a forehand, and his head is still there past the hit. Federer obviously was phenomenal at that. So is Djokovic on his backhand. He keeps his head still in the forehand. He moves ever so slightly. Nadal is great at that. Chris Evert was great at that. Steffi Graf was great at that. Serena Williams, you'd see her practice that even in the warm-ups. She would keep her head still a little longer than normal. So these are fundamentals that permeate throughout the game and through the generations. And so what I've tried to do is I constantly try to learn, trying to grow every day. And I'm not just saying that, Daniel, you know, to sound good. Oh yeah, I try to learn. No. I wake up every day. I'm never satisfied with my knowledge. So it's push, understand the fundamental principles, stay alert to the high performance principles, the cutting edge stuff that's coming out, understanding all of that. You mix it together and hopefully you're doing a good job coaching these young talents.
Nick, you mentioned the optimum hitting zone.
Yeah.
How do you teach that? How do you find it?
Well, first of all, you get the person and, you know, they get their normal grip and you get them, if they have, say, an Eastern grip or semi-Western, they could be have them stand where they're in a either squared stance to straight in, or maybe a slight open stance, and have them just relax and take a practice swing. And then have them stop, a couple times and have them stop on impact. Now, usually the kids will have the racket closed, but you and I know that when they're hitting the ball, it's not closed. It's actually almost perpendicular to the ground. So you have them stop on impact and then follow through, and then have them do another practice, stop on impact and follow through, and you allow the back toe to rotate, and that makes sure you're releasing the hips. So you get an actual accurate point of contact, which should be the ideal distance from their body for them and for their stroke. Because some people have longer arms, some are shorter, so that's what I do to find where that ideal distance and place from their body. Then within that context, you want to get it before it gets up out of your strike zone, so you want to try to get that ball in the zone, which is the ideal distance and an optimum height to strike the ball. Didn't mean to get too nitty gritty there, but.
No, fantastic, yeah. Nick. We're going to continue with this. I love technique, so we will go through. But before we talk about the coaching, tell us about your playing life, because you were 48 in the world in 78. Yeah. You played the best players, right, back then, Connors, Bohr, I don't know. You played Vilas, Guillermo Vilas?
Yeah, I did play Vilas. I lost to him twice. So he was a little too good for him. I lost to him in the second round of the Australian Open, and I think I lost to him in the quarters of an event in Europe. But, obviously he was a great player. And, it's interesting you mentioned I worked really hard as a player, and it was a challenge. A lot of times I wasn't allowing myself to be free flowing. And so when I was good, I was pretty darn good. So like on today's ranking system, I probably would have been closer to the 20s because they take your best 14 or whatever. So I was very up and down, but I kept working at it. And when I left, I had learned a great deal. I'd played 8 guys that were #1 in the world, either before I played them, like Smith, Nastasi, Connors, McEnroe, Lendl, Becker, Edberg, Vila, so you learn an amazing amount from practicing with these guys and playing them in competition. And, when I was playing, Daniel, I didn't know what the future had in store, but the fact that I did the right thing by working as hard as I could and doing my best, and even though I struggled, and even though in that particular arena, I may not have reached my full potential, I continued working, and I didn't know it would hold me in such good stead with coaching, because this is what we want the kids to understand, is that when you're doing the right thing for the right reason, and you're working hard, and you've got the good attitude, and you're rising above frustration and difficulty to pursue something you love, that's a good thing. We don't always know how it's going to turn out from a result, but what I tell the kids, I can guarantee you it takes you down a good road, and you'll be glad that you did it the right way and gave it everything you have.
Fantastic. So, Nick, when you play those guys, those big champions, what things separate them from the rest of even now, I think champions are champions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what traits, characteristics, why these guys are different, special?
Well, there are multiple factors, but there is #1, they're not afraid to be great.
Oh.
And that's really big. In other words, there are a lot of people that try to control outcomes as individuals. And you may love and want to win, but you have to have the courage to understand and let it go and say, I'm going to give myself every match the absolute best chance to win. And I'm going to be at peace with the fact that I am going to control the things I can control. I'm going to play like a champion. I'm going to act like a champion. I'm going to work like a champion. I'm going to do everything possible to be the best I can be. And then you have the courage to go out and play and give yourself the best chance. Once you try to guarantee outcomes, there's tension, anxiety, self-doubt. The point is, any one of the great pros, surprisingly, have great humility. They have confidence, but they also understand that they never can guarantee the outcomes. So they come to the matches ready to go. And they play every point as if you're top 10 in the world. It doesn't matter if you're 90 in the world. So if you're going to play, when I played some of the great players, it didn't matter if they were up or break. They kept pushing and working on every point. And so you notice that right away, is that they make you work on every point. The second thing is, when you hit a high quality shot at them, they handle it very easily. And that is what I call tennis specific athleticism. You could get Usain Bolt on the court, and yeah, he'd be faster than Djokovic, but he has no racket skill. You take Djokovic and you put him in a stretched out position, his racket skill plus his athleticism is combined to create tennis specific athleticism, you know, where he's stretched out and he can still produce shots. Man, you have to hit such high quality shots to win points. So they're playing high percentage aggressive, they're tough as heck to rush, and they are rarely making mistakes, unforced errors. And when you give them an opening, they'll punch you. But they're not going to punch you wildly. They're going to punch and still stay high percentage aggressive. So in order to beat a Nadal in 5 sets or to beat Djokovic, I mean, the effort that has to be put in to win games is enormous. So this is what I learned at a young age. I wasn't overly impressed with how hard the ball was hit. I wasn't overly impressed with how many winners they hit. But boy, these other factors really stood out at me.
And still applies in the champions, the future champions league, right?
More so than ever. I'll tell you, Daniel, because of coach to coach, if your players aren't tremendous tennis specific athleticism, they're not going to make it. Unless they're an Opelka who's going to serve 40 aces a match, they can get away with it a little bit. But look at the guys that are playing. They're great athletes, and they're great skill, and they're great in stretched out, uncomfortable positions. So much so that it doesn't even look like they're doing much. But players, male and female, you hit them a great shot and they go slide over there, balance when they're stretched out, and they produce a quality shot and they make it look easy. It's not easy. And when you see people that don't have that same level of skill, it becomes obvious that they're not nearly as good. And when you combine that with the great mindsets, the great competitive spirit, and the willingness to be great, and they accept that, and they accept the responsibilities that come with it, I'll tell you what, they're earning it.
Nick, have you ever thought about American tennis not winning a Grand Slam male in 20 years? I mean, it's difficult to accept, right? 20 years. Andy Roddick was the last one, US Open 2003. 20 years this year.
You want to know honestly? I'll tell you something.
No.
Finish your question, because I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something no one knows, but go ahead.
No. just what is your take about it? What happened in the last 20 years?
In the late 90s, I wrote a huge report when I was with the USTA. And I told them in the next generation, we might not even have one player in the top 10. And so I said that, you know, because of things that were happening in the United States and was happening around the world. I was incorrect. I said that we may not have any great champions coming up. And Roddick came, and he was, a tremendous player. He won a Grand Slam. But aside from Roddick, not much has happened, and in terms of at the very, very elite level. And I felt that the tennis players in the United States previously were, there's certain things I'll say, certain things I won't say, but some of them were not maybe as committed to being great as some of the others. That you saw some of the foreigners. There was increased competition from all over the world. A lot of our top athletes were maybe not opting to play tennis and, going into other sports. But what I really feel is we were being out-taught foundationally at the young ages. And I felt that includes developing a toughness and a mindset that leads to being a champion. And I think we got away from that a little bit. And also, as I said, combined with the fact we didn't have as many great athletes, combined with the increased competition, and also many years ago, Daniel, when I was younger and playing, and also for a few generations after that, we had the best competitive structure in the world in the United States. The junior competitive structure was phenomenal. Everyone played, everyone had to earn their way. And the last group that when I started coaching was in 1984. And the first group that I worked with included, and I was on the court, included the first player I worked with as a coach when I retired was a 14-year-old Michael Chang. Then the next person, same day, I was on the court with a 15-year-old Jim Curry. Then the next one there was it was either Pete Sampras, who was at the camp, and then it was David Wheaton, who was 12 in the world. So I go to sit down and I'm exhausted, and the guy said, "Have you hit with Andre yet?" And it was Andre Agassi. That was in 1984. And at one camp, it was before player development. And obviously they went on to do great things. So I learned a lot then, and they were a product of the old competitive environment. And then after that, it changed a lot, and a lot of kids going all over the world playing ITFs. A lot of the top players weren't playing the juniors. The top kids weren't competing against each other, and we kind of lost that environment.
Nick, but it seems, at least here in California, parents and players are obsessed about the UTR.
Oh my gosh, don't get me started.
More than improving, the parents are obsessed. What is your opinion about the UTR thing in the USA tennis?
I think the UTR is analogous to the internet. Okay? The internet has many wonderful things about it. A lot of things. But if it's used improperly, it's a disaster. And unfortunately, a lot of people are using the UTR improperly. Rather than, let me get a competition with somebody who's comparable level, or let me gauge how I'm progressing. They're making the UTR most important. And when you compete, Daniel, as you well know, if when you're actually competing, you cannot have winning as the top goal. The top goal has got to be executing to give yourself the best chance to win. You can't sit around and say, oh, I really want to win. I got to win this. No, you have to have the courage to go out and execute and fight to give yourself the best chance to win. So when it's break point, are you going to say, well, I got to win it? Well, if you go like that, you're going to get tight and anxious. But you say, I'm going to play it like a champion. I'm going to hit my shots, and I'm going to give myself the best chance to win. You can't put the result number one when you are competing, and you can't put the outcome number one when you are developing. You have to have it as one of your top goals, but not the top one. And the UTR as a top goal is essentially saying the result is the top goal. The thing that made those great players great that we talked about earlier is, and especially now with Djokovic, Nadal, and all of the Federer and all those great ones, they relentlessly were out there to be the best they can be. And that's very different in a match than winning the number one goal. Because if they made winning the number one goal, Daniel, when they get up 6-1, 5-2, they would kind of slack off, get a little sloppy because they're going to win the match. No, they won't do that.
Very clear, Nick. Thank you. I have questions from colleagues, friends, and okay. I don't want to let them down.
All right, go ahead.
Random questions about techniques, everything. So be ready. It's going to be fun for you, I guess.
Fun. I love it. Which
grip you will start a kid? Which for the forehand? Which is your
semi-Western or Eastern? The game is evolving and morphing closer to you. It's very difficult to have the Western now and play at the fast speeds because it's very tough. So I would go semi-Western to Eastern, one or the other. But if it's an Eastern, not, kind of a closer to a semi-Western. And if it's a semi-Western, a little closer to the Eastern. In other words, not an extreme semi-Western, not an extreme Eastern that's almost a continental.
Fantastic. Which serve would you teach first to a little one? Slice, flat, or topspin? The
first thing that I teach is making sure their arm action is good. You have the grip, the stance, then you go making sure they have the right arm action. With the right arm action should naturally come a bit of a natural slice. Then you can start getting the brush up. It's very important that the coach understands conceptually that the hand action goes up and out this way, even though most people would swear it comes around. It goes up and out like that and then comes around. So even though you may not tell the person to do that, you want to understand it as a coach. And I would go, first, the natural slice will come, hitting up on the ball more with slice, and I am very adverse to teaching young kids kick serves. Not a big fan of that.
Nick, I have great questions from the audience. It's about the dominant eye. It's been a topic in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Experts talking about the importance of the dominant eye on the techniques.
Yes.
What is your philosophy about it? How do you work on that?
I think if people look into it, you can do a lot of training to alleviate the adverse effect of, having one eye really dominant. In other words, people look at it from the pejorative. In other words, dominant eye, therefore you have to change a lot of things. I can assure you that the best players in the world have done a lot of eye exercises and things, and don't accept the status quo. The eyes are an extension of the eyes are the brain, part of the brain. And I am not an expert on dominant eye versus non-dominant eye. I have surface knowledge like most people. However, many years ago, my brother-in-law was really a brilliant optometrist. He was always cutting edge. He gave me a book on eye exercises about 40 years ago, 40 plus, almost 50 years ago. And there's much that can be done now. And in my opinion, I think you will find that any acceptance of one eye being superior to the other or dominant, I think they will, with training, alleviate that so that there is no need to compensate one eye over the other. I don't know if I'm making sense, but people are saying, well, it's the dominant eye, so on this side you should hit more, like open stance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm not a big fan of that.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of that. I think that people need to look into, and I think in the next generation, you're going to see a lot more research done on the visual system and how to maximize it. And, I think that there's just a lot that's going to come out with that. So I'm not a big fan of it. I know a lot of people talking about it. Not a big fan.
Okay, Nick, another thing that is confusing people is about the wrist on the forehand. We hear about use your wrist loose at contact, so and so. But when you're coaching kids, that can be difficult because it's kind of a misunderstanding concept and they start making too risky. So how is that done? Because it's confusing, Some coaches preach, let the wrist go, relax, everything is done with the wrist. So, and the people, I'm totally crazy about it.
Well, first of all, if your wrist is relaxed if your hand is relaxed on impact, the ball's going to fly out of your racket. So you have to clarify what it means. I mean, you have to, as a coach, you have to be precise with your wording. You can say it's going to feel like you're loose on impact, but you're not really, because you have to grab the racket on impact firmly. Otherwise, it's going to fly. So the reality of it is that, you want to, I would use a different term. I would use the term rhythmic, intense yet relaxed. You're intense, really focused, but you're allowing to flow, because tennis is more like liquid power. It's not muscling. And so I understand what they're saying, relax the wrist. Well, you want to focus on your facial muscles, getting what you were talking about with the visual system. A lot of people don't realize if you squint or you have tension in your face, it diminishes your peripheral vision. So it's very difficult to track an oncoming object. And so in order to maximize the visual system, you want to be in an optimum state. Well, what's the optimum state? That's highly intense, yet relaxed, like really alert and ready to go. That optimizes the visual system and it puts you more in the flow state. And then you want to talk about rhythm, timing, that type of thing, not loose. Loose is in English, it's a nebulous term. In other words, well, it's vague and unclear. You know what I mean? It's not clear. What do you mean loose? Like you hold the racket loose? I mean, the wrist is loose and it just flops? No, because in order, you've got to be firm on impact, and you're accelerating. So you're not just throwing the racket at the ball. I mean, it's got to be guided, to a certain extent. So I think different terminologies might be better, but I would encourage any coach that is thinking about that. I don't have corner markets on all the right answers, but think in terms of having 3 or 4 different terms in your coaching arsenal to get the point across to the athlete. I was just on the court today with a very good prospect, you know, is in town, won multiple national titles, young. And I often, like trying to fix a serve or work on a serve, I will start from the first part of the serve and I'll tweak simple things at the beginning if they're flawed. And very often that will have a cascading effect where it starts helping the rest of the serve without me having to say anything. So general good comments that invoke in the person a sense of feeling, rhythm, timing, be intense with your focus, relax the face, but, you know, really, you know, breathing, things like this to try to help accomplish what you want. I hope I answered that.
3 questions, Nick, I have about backhands.
Oh my goodness.
Is the one-handed backhand dead? For men,
No.
both.
It's dead until the next great one comes along. The point is, this may sound, you know, somebody like a Tsitsipas. I used to watch the TV against Nadal and Federer, start yelling at the TV after watching Federer hit his backhand in the first game or two. I said, that's it, he's going to lose. And because he was trying to brush up and over the ball and get it to Nadal, and you're just not going to do that hard enough and fast enough to get it to Nadal's backhand. And I always felt he needed to be more aggressive and hit through and over more, so it's a more penetrating shot. And it wasn't until later on he got a bigger racket and he started ripping his backhand more. I'm not sure who suggested that to him. And what I'm getting at is a one-handed backhand, they have to be able to penetrate with it. You can't kind of fall back and hit the old, you know, Spanish one-handed fadeaway backhand. That's done. It gives the guy too much time, and you cannot generate enough pop. You got to look more at somebody like Wawrinka, who was one of the strongest guys to play, but he hit his backhand more through and over, not so much under, up, and over. And this is critical for people that are going to try to have a return of serve. You have to load up the outside leg, and you have to be able to hit through and over, even though technically you are swinging up and over, but not as much, in order to be able to drive the ball through. Because almost no one hits under, way up, and over on a forehand return. Nadal does because he stands 50 feet behind the baseline. So I think we'll see some great backhands coming up, but we won't see many. And the two-hander is much easier to master than a one-handed backhand. And if we do see a one-handed backhand, that person is probably going to be attacking the net very effectively. Because if they don't, and they don't have a great slice, it's not going to be good enough.
Going to the two-handed backhand grip, Nick, I have a question. What is the best for you, the ideal combination of grips for the two-handed backhand?
Boy, I'm telling you, every day I study the grips because the hands are different sizes and so on. I like on the right hand, kind of your standard continental, and I like on the left hand more of an Eastern, low Eastern, almost towards a semi-Western. But the key point is, Daniel, is the hands can't be fighting each other. So if if the front hand is not quite continental, and it's a little bit towards an Eastern, just slightly, then the left hand has to be slightly more towards the Eastern and less towards the semi-Western. You see what I mean? You can't have one towards an Eastern, the front hand, the right hand towards an Eastern, and the left hand towards a semi-Western.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're fighting each other. So they have to work in harmony with each other. And the other thing that I've learned, and gosh, you know, sometimes I wish I have to just keep learning. You know, that's half the story, though. The other half of the story is where the heel of the hand is. In particular, on the backhand. So it's on the left hand, where you're right here in the heel of that hand, where that is, because sometimes the index finger knuckle is where it should be, but the heel is too high. You know, the palm area is too high or too low, and that profoundly affects the grip. So I'm constantly...
You mean the left, the non-dominant hand, right?
Non-dominant hand, which should be the dominant hand on a great backhand.
Correct. Correct.
That makes sense?
Absolutely. Nick, private lessons. I have a question from mom, that's
okay,
and said, how many privates my son should take a week? He wants to play competitive. He's 12. He's going to a tennis academy, attending that. How many privates? What is your suggestion about privates versus group lessons and the developmental stages?
Well, I'm not being flippant, but it depends how skilled the coach is. And, you know, you get a highly skilled coach and they can frame the issues on what to work on fairly quickly. If they have a staff that is going to support those basic things and reinforce, then maybe you could cut down on the number of lessons. I would suggest multiple lessons of, you know, whether it's 2 30-minute ones or, you know, 1 hour and maybe another 30-minute later on. But there are a couple key points. I don't believe they should be taking lessons every day. I think they become bored with it. They don't appreciate it. And I think that can be a very big negative. And it's important that they're interacting with other kids. So you don't want to have like this private coach and that's all they work with. That will turn them sour on tennis, in my opinion.
Perfect, Nick. Do you have some water? You don't have water?
I got it right here. I'm fine.
There you go. Cheers. Cheers.
And to you.
Nick, give me your definition of talent, because I heard so many different definitions from the coaches and players about the word talent. What is talent for Nick Saviano?
First of all, talent is one of the most debilitating and negative things you can tell a child. You do not want to be telling them they're talented. You want, in my opinion, you want to tell them you work hard, you're determined. If you work hard and you're determined and you're committed to be tough and rise above anything that gets in your way, you can accomplish anything you want. You have the ability to do it and you go out and get it. But work ethic, commitment, going out and doing what your family values say, you know, preparation, hard work, have an attitude. We do the right thing, not because of what other people think. We do the right thing because that's what we do as a family. And so, therefore, your talent is in your work ethic. Your talent is in your resiliency. Your talent is in your ability to learn. Your talent is in your passion. Your talent is in your motivation. You are relentless. That's your talent. You've been given plenty of God-given talent. The question is, are you going to use it? That's your goal. That's your objective. And you know what, young man or young woman, nobody can stop you, ever. And you take that approach and you dig and you fight and you work, and that's the greatest talent you can have. Because let me follow. When somebody commits to working on something with joy, with passion, I don't care, Daniel, if they're going to be a carpenter. I don't care if they're going to be a teacher. They do it long enough, they achieve a level, their brain grows in that area, and they become amazing. Year after year, if there's joy and passion and that kind of commitment, you know it, you've seen it all the time, and they achieve greatness. That's talent. That's what we want from our kids. Not the one child that's, oh, you're talented. Then they become fearful. And somebody alluded to that in the book, which is growth mindset. It was a mindset, and growth mindset. It really took that concept and ran with it. It's something that I have known for decades before reading that, because it was taught to me. But to me, that's the talent that we want to instill in our kids, and that's something that lasts for a lifetime. One final point, because when you do that, Daniel, it diminishes the anxiety. It makes people more willing to flow and to reach for the stars, because they know they don't have to be perfect. They're not worried about others' expectations, and it comes from the inside out. That's where greatness is found.
Nick, you're running a mentor class. I love it, mentorship. So, Nick, when you watch a junior player for the first time,
Yes.
what do you look first? Nick Saviano standing, watching the 12, 13, 14-year-old boy or girl, what do you watch first? What are you observing first? Where your eyes are going first?
Well, first, I don't follow the ball. I don't need to follow the ball. I can tell as the ball comes off the racket, the type of shot that's being hit. I want to see how quickly they pick things up. I want to see if they understand how to play. I want to see their split step. I want to see the intensity yet relaxation. Are they stressed when they move? Do they have a lot of tension in their body? Have they been told that they're a great talent, and therefore when they miss a ball, they think they have to show everyone how upset they are because they really should have made that shot? I'm really better than that. All of these factors. And when you see an intensity yet a relaxation, and how they receive mistakes. You watch someone who's brilliant on the piano. You watch somebody who's brilliant in math. You watch somebody who's brilliant in tennis. And in math, they make a mistake and they don't go, oh no, well, I shouldn't have made it. No, they go, okay, what do we got? Oh, this. Well, maybe it's here. And they get right to it. They learn, they grow. So their mistakes, Daniel, become building blocks to success. And you find me someone who, when they miss the ball, they go, oh no, a little higher, boom, this. And then, oh, that better. Okay, boom, boom. Now a little higher, boom. And they're working and they're learning. When they're trying to do it the right way, Daniel, and they make a mistake, it's a good mistake. It's a learning block. That's where something special is going to happen. When you're in that state of mind, I'm not joking, that player will improve 200 to 300% faster than the person that's going missing, going, oh, you know, this and that. You watch a protege on a piano, and you'll see them playing, and they make a mistake, and they go, no, and they'll go like this. Okay, got it. And then they go, they push forward. That is powerful. I want to see that. I want to see athleticism, speed, agility, quickness. And then are they skilled in tennis-specific athleticism? And that comes from running, stretching for balls, even when you don't think you're going to get there, and digging. You become coordinated. Djokovic didn't wake up and became skilled at being totally stretched out and hitting a ball. It comes from years of practicing and running, stretching, sometimes getting there, sometimes not. So this is where you find people that are special. Serve, men's tennis, women's tennis. If they don't have a great action, you better be really good at teaching it, because the action needs to be close to flawless in the future. There's no room for flawed service actions in the future, in women's or men's.
Nick, should we teach to little ones the new forehand, you know, the next gen with the elbow? This is another thing that the social media coaches are instilling.
Yeah.
This is the modern forehand, next gen, elbow up. Right? Talk about that, because it's another topic that is confusing and driving people nuts, crazy about it.
Look, there are certain biomechanics that are, and again, I don't have all the right answers. I'm always looking for knowledge and growth. Look, when you take the racket back sideways and you hold it here, the elbow doesn't have to be way up there. It can be, there's different nuances, but clearly you don't see, what do you not see from the men, the top men? And I have a reason why I'm saying men. Number one, you don't see them close the face as they take it back. You know what I mean? At the first move, they're not putting the racket face down and taking it back. They generally don't do that.
But couple guys do it.
Who?
Kachanov?
Oh, yeah. Well, God bless you if you want his forehand.
And the other one is Kokinakis, the Greek.
Yeah,
I have pictures. He's like this.
Again, how many Grand Slams they won?
No, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How about Francis Tiafoe?
You like his forehand?
No.
No, of course not. There's a young man who's a great athlete, but those flaws in some of the techniques, and he's been well coached by Ferreira's done a really nice job with him. And a lot of credit to him. I didn't know how good he was going to be, but I felt that there were some flaws that limited his future in the game. But no, I wouldn't have taught. I said that when he was 4. They asked me to look at him. Somebody did when he's 15. I said that's got to be cleaned up. And there's a reason why you look at some of the fundamentals of the greatest forehands of all time, and there's a lot of similarities. So you look at the similarities. They stay on the same side of their body. They basically, from a starting position, which is below their eye level, they'll come up at an angle, so it doesn't go in front of their face, up at an angle to the side, and they go up. Now, generally, I'm going to your side, the racket is slightly tilted this way. It doesn't have to be. Federer was this way. And Nadal is this way.
Yes.
And so there's different nuances, but fundamentally it comes up from the side. They stay on this side. When they're back here, no one opens the face this way in the back, like open. So you come here and there's different degrees of the hand closing. The perfect way, it depends on the individual. But stick with the fundamental principles. Number one, they don't take the racket back like this from here as a general rule. They take it up. So you have up and then it's able to drop down. Almost no one takes it down low at the start, correct? And there's a reason why. Because it's not functional for the high level tennis. So if you have a standard grip, up to the side, up here, whether it's this way or slightly closed. It can vary. And most of the time in the next generation, especially with the females, you will see this gravitating more because there's almost no male player that will not consistently hold the racket with the non-dominant hand to the side fence at least. That's a loading process. Can they hit it without doing that? Yes, but they'll hold here. If you look at the 5 best forehands in the world, whoever they might be, you're going to find that the 5 are holding with the non-dominant hand. Not every time. When Alcaraz is kind of going to show off a little bit, sometimes he lets go and then he unloads on something. But when it really matters, he's holding the non-dominant hand on the racket like this, and then he separates out. Anyway, that's my thought.
Very clear. Nick, would you teach a boy and a girl the same forehand technique?
I would teach the fundamentals the same. And the fundamentals of what I was saying, I'm very big on the first move. Most people don't pay attention to it. The quality of the first move ties in with the split, opening the hip, turning the shoulders together, getting what I call a separation angle. I call it a golden move from here to here, where you open the outside hip and you get to here. These are things, yes, I would teach exactly the same. I want the clean first move. Now, then I want them to stay on this side. So it's very similar, but a guy might be exploding up more because he can generate power and speed a little more. But generally, yes, very, very, very similar. But I've never had 2 players that look the same.
Yeah, because there is such a concept of WTA forehand versus ATP forehand. I've seen a lot of videos about that. Is that true, Nick?
Yes. Well, because the old forehands, a lot of women were taking it back with an open racket face in the back. And when you do this, it goes back very far.
Yeah.
And if you can, I don't know if you can see me, but if you don't make the first move, you see where if I'm holding here, this is where I'm coiling and I'm storing energy. So the more that I store energy in there, the less I feel I have to go back. But if the hands separate, I'm not storing energy in the front part of the shoulder and the separation between the shoulders and the hips. And therefore, my brain is saying, to get power, I got to go way back with the racket. So that's why the men, if one thing is a constant, they coil, and they're like a corkscrew coiling, and they can generate big power without a big backswing. And that is a necessity in the next generation for men and women.
Nick, you coach some of the top WTA players, Kuchar, many, and Sean Stevens, also boys. Man, what is the difference between coaching ATP players or top ITF boys and girls? I mean, you have the experience of coaching both.
Yeah, I do. I actually, many years ago, I predominantly work with guys. And, so recent, last 10, 15 years, it's been a lot of females because, with the guys, the commitment to get to a world-class level is such a long, long road. And if you yourself are going to develop a top world-class male player, which I feel, I have the knowledge, and I've worked with a lot of guys, many guys that have gone on and done very well and won Grand Slams. But the thing is, it's such a long road, and it requires so much time and effort that I'm not going to go out and travel with guys. I can work with talented young females, and they can be world class by 16 years old. I've had multiple players. I mean, it's shocking, but I was on the court and working with Jennifer Capriati when she won the French juniors at 13. She blew everyone away. She was world class by 14. And then I had a girl that I worked with her dad, Amanda Anisimova. She was in the finals of French juniors at 14. She was in the semifinals of the French Open at 17. I've spent a lot of time with Coco Gauff and Corey Gauff. They would come out quite a bit right up till, you know, she became a star at Wimbledon. You know, they come out for a couple of years, but it got progressively more right up till then, where they come out once or twice a week, you know, something like that. And I mean, she was pretty darn good at 15. And Laura Robson, many years ago, she won Junior Wimbledon at 14. You know, it happens so quickly, and I'm staying in one place. So I start, you know, I've worked with many world-class male players and many national championship guys, but they usually will go on to university. The women, the difference is it happens quicker, much quicker. And so they develop physically quicker. I think they develop emotionally, mentally quicker. And so the process goes faster. The men, you've got to do the same thing with the women, except, you know, the fundamentals are the same. It's just that each individual is different. I don't like to say, oh, I work with a woman that's different than a guy. It's very similar. You got to be respectful. You got to be sensitive. You got to be aware of their personality, how they learn, you know, help instill confidence in themselves. So I don't see it as a huge difference, except for the process is very different. What we actually use in it is very, very similar.
When Nick Saviano says this guy is a good coach or she is a good coach, can you hear me?
Yeah.
When you look at a coach, you say, how do you spot a good coach? How do you
start a good
coach? No. How do you spot? When you see?
You spot a good coach when you see that they are open to learning. That's number one. I'm always looking to learn. And literally the day I come to the conclusion that I've learned what I need to learn, it's over. No, it's over. I'm done, because I'm walking off the court, because that means I'm no longer a good coach. So I have to be curious. I have to probe. I have an obligation to the young people that I'm learning, growing. I'm a better coach than I was 6 months ago. I have more knowledge than 6 months ago. And, you know, yeah, I can't hit the way I used to. I can still hit okay. I certainly can stand and volley well. But my understanding of the game, my communication skills, I've retained most of the good knowledge that I've had. I've learned more humility as I've gotten older, you know, understanding about this whole process. And so I feel that that's the number one characteristic. Then if they have that component, then if they're willing to, you know, if they're conscientious and they're studying the game and they understand basic techniques, if they understand the age appropriate teaching the kids. I've seen some brilliant people with 10-year-olds. I've seen some people that are brilliant with college players, and so on. So, you know, it's understanding. I've been blessed to work with 9-year-olds all the way up to literally being on the court with number ones in the world and Grand Slam champions. And the overriding thing, Daniel, and then I'm going to have to run, the overriding thing that I pass on to my colleagues, because it's so important. It's the most important thing that I've learned. And that is When you teach, when you educate, when you mentor, it is a sacred trust. It is not about selling a car to somebody. It is much more important than that. And if you're working with young people, you darn well better honor that trust and never deviate from doing what you think is in the best interest of that child always. And then that sacred trust goes to the parents because they're saying, this is my precious child, help me out, guide them. That is a responsibility to them. And people that think that you take the parents, you blow them up, put them on the side, just leave it to us, that's folly or fools. Because they are the most important people in a child's life at the younger ages and for most of their young life. And if you're not working with them, it doesn't mean they're coaching with you, but if you're not working as a team, you're not doing your job. That will vary with every parent. Some will be fairly distant. Some will be want to be on the court. Do you have to put them in their place? Absolutely, sometimes. But it is a team effort, and the relationship will evolve as time goes by. As the person gets older, young adult, they many times will fade into the background more. But that's the most important thing I've learned, because that keeps me driving forward with passion and joy. And you know, when I get an 8-year-old and I've just worked with a world-class player, I got to tell you, I'm just as excited with that little one as I am with the other. And with that.
Excellent, Nick. I'll let you go. One more question before you go. Please, please.
Yeah.
Give to the parents an advice for those who dream to have the next Serena, the next Pete, the next Andre, the next Federer. I want you to give the parents an advice from you, from your expertise.
Well, look, number one is that mindset stuff I was talking about. Tell them where their talents are, not in their physical talents, but it's in their work ethic, it's their perseverance, it's their resiliency, all of this. Tell them that they can accomplish anything. Get them to dream big. Dream of what can be. Go ahead and dream. Explain to them that it's okay to fall on your face. It's okay to make a mistake. Get up, persevere, keep pushing yourself. Go for what you want, and you'll never be sorry. And then don't make it easy on them. They want something, earn it. Push yourself. You know, there's responsibility that comes with opportunity. Challenge yourself. Push to be the best you can be. It's not about the outcome. It's about the process of getting there and continuing. Teach them that at a young age. Then get them good coaching at a young age, great training, and have them with that work ethic. Tell them to work real hard. If they're out there for 2 hours, work hard. Make sure they have a joyous passion for playing. Make sure the person around them cultivates that, the coach, not where they're beating them up emotionally, where they're encouraging them, kind of fostering their dreams. And you get a joyous passion with that young person that will drive them to work hard in that second phase of development, which is what is needed to be. But I'll tell you what, it starts young and it goes nonstop.
Nick, huge thanks to you for this time.
Are you kidding me? This has been my privilege and my pleasure to be with you, Daniel. I really mean that. It's been wonderful. I apologize for the difficulty at the beginning, but it's truly great to see you. It makes me more excited to go out and teach, which is what I got to do now because I'm running late.
And I have to do it too.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Nick. I hope I see you when I go to Florida. Thank you so much.
That would be great. All the
Take
best.
care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.